On today's episode, I am super excited to have a postpartum doula on the podcast. Welcome to the All About Pregnancy and Birth podcast. I'm Dr. Nicole Calloway Rankins, a board-certified OBGYN who's been in practice for nearly 15 years. I've had the privilege of helping over 1,000 babies into this world, and I'm here to help you be calm, confident, and empowered to have a beautiful pregnancy and birth. Quick note, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Check out the full disclaimer at drnicolerankins.com/disclaimer. Now let's get to it. Hey, real quick, before we get into this episode, my new and improved online birth course, the Birth with Power Pathway, is coming in May. If you want to feel calm, confident, and actually prepared for your hospital birth, this is for you. The best way to be the first to know when it drops, join my email list at drnicolerankins.com/email. Hello. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. This is episode number 115. Thank you for being here with me today. You are in for a treat today with my conversation with Valerie Trumbower. Valarie is a DONA Certified Postpartum Doula and a Certified Lactation Counselor, and she helps people prepare for life with a newborn. She is the mother of 3, including a set of twins. Her online courses, Expecting 101 and Expecting 101 You're Adopting, have helped hundreds of families prepare for life with their newborns. You can also get tons of great free information that she provides on her Instagram account at New Parents Academy. She has over 48,000 followers there. Tons of great information there as well. Valerie's love for her work really shines through in our conversation. We chat about what is a postpartum doula, what it's like to work with a postpartum doula, what you should look for in a postpartum doula, 3 things you need to know about life with a newborn. These 3 things are golden. You have to hear them. We chat a bit about her New Parents Academy and more. Tons and tons of useful information in this episode. You are really going to find it helpful. And I'm also super excited to share that for those of you who are part of the birth preparation course, Valarie will be doing a live Q&A with me for course members only next week. This is a new feature I'm adding to the birth preparation course where we will do special Q&A sessions with podcast guests and others, so you as a course member have an opportunity to interact with guests, ask questions, and go deeper into topics beyond what we can do here on the podcast. So if you didn't already have enough reasons to join the birth preparation course, here is another one. You can learn all the rest of the details and great stuff within the birth preparation course and join us at drnicolerankins.com/enroll. All right, let's get into our conversation with Valerie Trumbower. Thanks so much, Valarie, for agreeing to come on the podcast. I am super excited to have you here to talk about your work as a postpartum doula and a lactation counselor.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today also.
Yeah, so why don't you start off by telling us a bit about yourself, your work, and your family, if you'd like.
I would love to. So as you said, my name is Valerie Trumbower. I'm married to my husband, Doug, who is a 3rd grade teacher. So yes, he's a 3rd grade teacher. So he's clearly a very patient man. We live in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. So we live about 45 minutes north of Philadelphia. We have 3 kids, including a set of identical twins. So our life is like just chaotic enough. I like a little chaos. Professionally, I am a postpartum doula and a certified lactation counselor. So I work within about an hour of where I live here as a postpartum doula. And I'm also the creator of New Parents Academy. So what I do inside of New Parents Academy is really to help people to prepare for and navigate life with a new baby. I always say that my goal is to help people feel like they know what they're doing as they get ready for their baby and once their baby arrives. And so I have a lot of resources online. I'm really active on Instagram and YouTube. And I have two online courses, one for people who are pregnant and one for people who are preparing to adopt a newborn.
Love it, love it, love it. So you still practice as a doula?
I do. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're similar to me in the respect that we both still do our like daytime job, so to speak, or we'll learn as nighttime in your case, because I believe I saw that you work a lot at night. Yes. And then translate that information to help people in a wider way.
For sure. And it definitely, I mean, given this pandemic time, working in people's homes has changed. And as my online business has grown, I think, kind of a balance of both of those things. But there was certainly many, many times where I'm working with two different families. So maybe Monday and Wednesday, I'm overnights with one family and Tuesday, Thursday with another. During COVID, that's not happening. And then as my online business has grown, it's great to still have that time in people's homes. And for people who follow me on Instagram, they know the nights I work because they're like, now she's giving a baby a bath, or like she's doing this. So a lot happens in the middle of the night on Instagram on the nights I work.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a bit about what training you went through to become a postpartum doula and also a certified lactation counselor? I like to give people a little bit of background for how you got to be where you are.
Yes, for sure. So that journey started, it's so interesting. When I had kids, I didn't even know what a postpartum doula was. So it wasn't like I set out to be a postpartum doula. It really started for me becoming a volunteer breastfeeding counselor through like a local organization.
Right.
And I did that. I went through that training because when I was pregnant with twins, my kids are 3 years apart. So my daughter was born, and then 3 years later, we get the shock of our lives that like we're having two babies. So at the time that I was pregnant with the boys, I would say, I plan to breastfeed. And so often people's response was like, good luck with that. Or is that even possible? And, that sometimes people's response to anything is just like, oh my gosh.
Exactly.
But so after I had breastfed the boys and they were a little bit older, I pursued being a breastfeeding counselor to help other people who were in that situation and thinking like, I don't know, is it possible? And if they had questions, just to have somebody to speak with who had gone through it. So it was kind of a long training. It was like 10 weeks. You went every other week. And it was funny because I would be like writing essays about clogged milk ducts. And my husband's going, no wonder they don't have a lot of volunteers. This is a lot of work.
Right.
So a couple years later, at that point, I had come to understand what a postpartum doula was, what that looked like. And so then I pursued becoming a postpartum doula. And I did that so that I was prepared when my kids were in school. So really to work overnights, that's what works best. So I'm certified through DONA International as a postpartum doula. And then after working with so many breastfeeding families in their homes as a doula, I saw the value of having that lactation piece. So then I went and was certified as a certified lactation counselor.
Okay, perfect. And I guess, what did you do before you got into the birth space?
Oh, totally different thing. My degree is in marketing.
Okay.
I worked for a TV production company for a long time. So absolutely zero having to do with babies, but I feel like it's so interesting to see like how that serves me now. It's like I'm filming myself in my house and I'm like back in my TV production days. So it all comes together. God has a good plan.
Isn't that the truth? So then what led you to then go on develop like online classes and a community there?
Well, as a doula working like in people's homes, I would see just the difference that it made when new parents felt like they knew what they were doing. And I think that confidence comes from feeling prepared. It's so powerful. So, I would see that if both people didn't feel confident, because sometimes in a relationship, it's one person who feels like, they know what to do with the baby, or they know how to change a diaper or give a bath or whatever it is. And so in those situations, if one person feels much more comfortable, all of the work or everything falls to that one person. So really wanting to help everybody to feel prepared and excited when their baby arrived. So I created Expecting 101 to make it easy for people to get that information that they needed so that they felt like they knew what they were doing. Now this was pre-pandemic, so there was still that option of going to a class at the hospital for newborn care or breastfeeding, but I wanted them to be able to watch together and to be able to then go on to ask questions. If you as your baby, your due date approaches or after your baby's arrived, if you have questions, I wanted to be able to be a resource for people. I always tell my course members, I'm like, don't Google search, don't randomly look online. I want to be your resource as you get ready to welcome your baby. And then I created my second online course, which is Expecting 101 You're Adopting, after working with a family who was preparing to adopt twin boys. And that was my first family as a doula who I had worked with that was adopting. And it was so, just so special. They were adopting twin boys. So I think I always have this bond with people who are having twin boys where it's like, what a blessing.
Right.
That's a lot of boys.
Yes.
It's kind of that balance of like, yes, I remember that feeling well. So adoption is a lot of paperwork and waiting and all of that. But at the end, you're going to have a baby. And so I love helping people prepare for that time and kind of going away from, I know there's a lot of other things happening in adoption, but let's talk about when your baby arrives. I want you to feel ready when you get that call that you've been matched. So, my course, it provides education hours, which people like. For a lot of agencies that requires education hours. And I really just wanted to create something that spoke specifically to an adoptive situation, because there's a lot that's the same no matter if you gave birth to this baby or adopted the baby. So there's a lot that's the same about life with a newborn, but there's also things that are different. So I wanted to speak to that and just have a resource specifically for those families adopting.
Love it, love it, love it. Let's talk about something most pregnant women aren't getting enough of: omega-3 DHA. The recommendation is over 200 milligrams a day, but less than 5% of pregnant women in the US meet that. That's one of the reasons I love Ritual's Essential Prenatal. It has 350 milligrams of vegan DHA plus other key nutrients like methylated folate and choline to support baby's neural tube development. As an OBGYN, I appreciate that Ritual goes beyond the basics. The formula is science-backed, third-party tested for heavy metals and microbes, and every ingredient is traceable. And the delayed release design, it's gentle on the stomach, something that really matters, especially if there's trouble with nausea during pregnancy. You deserve to know exactly what you're putting into your body, especially when it comes to prenatal multivitamins. And with Ritual's dedication to traceable science and sourcing, you always will. See for yourself with 25% off your first month at ritual.com/Dr. Nicole. Start Ritual or add Essential Prenatal to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/Dr. Nicole for 25% off your first month. So many doulas focus on birth. What led you to focus specifically on the postpartum period?
It is true. Many people will say, like I was just getting my hair done the other day and she's like, well, were you at a birth last night? I'm like, no, I'm not. But people don't realize that there are birth doulas and postpartum doulas, and some people are certified as both. I am just certified as a postpartum doula because for me, I love supporting people during that time of transition.
Gotcha.
As everybody's adjusting to life as a new family. You have kids, many people know having a baby changes your relationship with your partner. You're adjusting to this new role as a parent. And you're looking for support to understand how to care for this little person, or what does that cue mean? And so a lot of what I do as a doula is confidence building, just that people know that you're doing exactly what you should be as you all get to know each other.
Got it. Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And I didn't even realize you could get certified as just specifically a postpartum doula. So you learn something new every day.
Yes. And as I said, and I work just overnights, but some doulas work just during the days. So just to give you a little picture of what it looks like on my end, I work usually 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. It kind of
Okay.
depends on, I have a high schooler, so I need to be back to get her to school. So it
Right.
depends how far I am. If I'm going into Philly, it usually is 9:30 to 5:30. But during that time, I'm taking care of, the babies or the babies, however many babies there are, so
Uh-huh.
that people can get some rest. Because for a lot of, that's a big piece of this. You have this new person, your body is recovering, and you're doing this all on so much less sleep than you're used to. So parents are able to get some more sleep than if I weren't there. If mom's breastfeeding, I'm watching those feeds to see, is the baby's latch effective? Is milk transferring?
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, because a lot of people will say, well, should I get a doula? I'm planning to breastfeed. What would a doula do? And the way I explain it is, you're going to hand me back this baby who's hiccuping, who pooped while he was eating and needs to be soothed and held upright for 20 minutes, and you can go back to bed. And so it really is, people love it. Some people are, that first night, a lot of people are like, okay, we're going upstairs. I have to be honest, this feels a little weird. We're
Right,
leaving our
right.
baby. And then they come down the next morning and they're like, everyone needs a postpartum doula. I'm like, yes. So, I do baby laundry, light meal prep, get systems in place. So if as someone's talking about something, they'll say, or I'll notice they don't have something at their changing station, or their bottle station could use a little setup. People love waking up in the morning and seeing like what happened while they were sleeping. They really love it.
Gotcha, gotcha. So how long do you typically work with families?
Well, it can be really different. I have families who I have worked with for several nights a week for months, but then there are also families who I've worked with just 1 or 2 nights. I've had several people give 1 or 2 nights of my service to someone as a baby shower gift, and I
Ah,
always love that. It's a great gift. So I think it's important to understand doula care can be adapted to what your situation is
mhm.
or what your budget is. And
Mm,
so I tell people up front, like if okay, we have $2,000 we're willing to spend on this, or, my in laws are going to give us this much money. Be open with your doula about that. So I can help you to figure out, okay, let's put more nights at the beginning, but I wouldn't want you to run out of money by 3 weeks is a tough time with life with a newborn. So
sure.
I won't let you run out of money before 3 weeks. We'll kind of make it last until then. So I think it can look like whatever your situation is.
I love that. I love that because I think sometimes people can get like caught up on the cost and can I afford it? And you're like, just work with what you have to get the most out of the experience.
Oh, for sure. And I get it where it sounds like, ooh, that's fancy. You have a postpartum doula,
Hmm.
but I've worked with families where I just work Sunday night for, 5 weeks. And it's just to have that light in the middle of your week where you're like,
Sure.
oh my gosh, I can't do this. But Valerie comes on Sunday, so you can keep going. So, and then you also have that time to run things by me. Very often, as soon as I walk in, mom or dad will open up their phone and they have their notes, and it's like, his head's flaking. Is that normal? This
Right.
happened. Is that normal? And just having that person to run these things by is such a value. And I think it's important to say a doula isn't this isn't a medical position. I'm
Sure.
not a nurse. So there's certainly times where I'll say, somebody will like, I'll change a diaper and be like, this circumcision looks a little, you might want to reach out in the morning. I would call your doctor, or
Right.
just things where it's like, here, you don't know what's normal. You've been a parent for like 4 days,
Exactly.
you don't know what the heck is. Yeah. So I always say, I just live in the newborn stage. I just go over and over in the newborn stage with people.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, I mean, it could be like one night a week, it could be 2 nights a week. It's just like nice to have that person that's there, like you said, that can just take the relief off for a little bit. And like someone who has experience who you can bounce things off of. I'm sure that is invaluable.
Oh, people, yeah, it's so much confidence building, and I'll get there, and some nights, and people are like, "Ooh, look, I tried that thing you said," and this, they're so excited to tell me when different things have worked, or like, I held him this way, like you said the other night, and he went to sleep, or whatever. It's so valuable to have someone in your home.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And then, okay, so let's talk about what if someone is thinking about having a postpartum doula? When should they reach out to sort of establish that relationship?
The answer is earlier than you would think.
Okay.
Pretty early. It depends where you live. How many doulas there are around. The earlier, the better, I think, because then you kind of have your pick instead of calling. And even like I had a call with someone the other day who was due in September, and she was ended up to be too far from me, but I was like, okay, here's your resources of you really need to get on this, because you don't want to just have to be like, this is the only person I could find, because that it's so important that you find the right person for your situation. So I would
Absolutely.
say by 16 to 20 weeks, that's great. Now, if someone's listening and they're like, this all sounds great, and I'm 32 weeks pregnant, is this too late for me? It's never too late. Like, I have people who have hired me after their baby is born, and it
Uh,
just looks very different than what they thought it would look like. Or maybe, their C-section incision came open and now they can't even lift their baby. I've definitely started working with families after the baby arrives. So there's no time where it's like, boy, you missed the boat on that whole doula thing. But I think if you know now that this sounds like something that would work for your family, it's best to reach out and try to find that person.
Got it. So you start working with families. If you start working with them during the pregnancy, how soon are you meeting them at home after the birth?
So usually what it looks like is I'll have a phone conversation or Zoom or FaceTime or something, and
Hmm.
we'll just get the question, like I did with that mom who was due in September, and we talk through pretty early on. We realized, okay, this isn't, you're too far from me, but let me tell you about what doula care looks like. And you had a tough time breastfeeding the first time. You're going to want somebody who has like that lactation piece and really understand. So we have a phone conversation, and then I go to meet them usually at their home, which is what works best. And in person, that's free. For most doulas that I know, it's free to go. Just kind of that interview where I'm getting to know you and you're getting to know me, and we're finding out if this is a good match. And then we'll talk at that time. You'll sign a contract with what, your intentions are. You're looking for this much, this many nights a week or for this long. And then we'll talk about when you want me to start. And for most people, it is either the first or second night after they bring the baby home.
Okay. 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 Perfect. Perfect. And then how do you find that balance? I guess since you're not there every night, it's not like I assume you're typically not there every night.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm
Yeah.
not. I mean, there was definitely a time in my career as a doula where I worked 5 nights a week. Now, just that balance with my online business and my family, I try not to be too grouchy, like too many nights in a row.
Sure. Exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, so no, I'm usually a couple of nights a week, but on the nights I'm not there, I'm always, we're always texting if somebody has a question or something like that. So it's still a resource for people.
Gotcha.
But, some people are looking for 5 nights a week, and it's like, okay, I'm probably not your girl, but let me help you kind of point you in the direction of who is.
Okay. Okay. Well, with 5 nights a week, how do you find that balance of like being there, but also allowing the new parents to interact with the baby and get to learn the baby and know the baby? Because I feel like even though, nights you want some rest, you also, some of those nights are a lot about getting to know this tiny human being that you are charged with. So how do you find that balance?
Yeah, and I think that balance is necessary even when I'm just there 2 nights a week,
Mm,
because you'll say, okay, like when, very often mom will wake up in the middle of the night if she's pumping, or sometimes or feeding, or even if she's not breastfeeding, she might come down and want to talk through things. And I'll say, or in the morning, I'll say, here's what happened last night. He really started losing it around 2 a.m. Let me show you what I did so that if this happens, you know what worked last night. That doesn't mean it's always going to work, but it's what worked last night. And then we'll learn different things over the nights I'm not there. They'll say, this happened. Oh my gosh, is this okay? Or I laid him down and I looked over and he spit up all over the place. What else could we have done? And just kind of talking through different situations preemptively, and then after they've happened, saying, okay, well, next time I would try this. So it sounds like to be honest, there's not a lot of people who can afford 5 nights a week of
sure.
doula
Yeah,
care
that's
for
a lot.
very
Right.
long.
Yeah.
That's a lot. But there usually is that balance of, the nights I'm not there, and then talking through what happened and things like that.
Gotcha. Now, speaking of cost, how much do postpartum doulas typically cost? And I know there's a range and it depends on the area where you are, but how much do they typically cost?
It for sure does depend on where you are in the country. I would say between like $25 an hour to $50 an hour is probably, I mean, I know that's also a very large range, but somewhere in there. And usually a doula is going to have a minimum. So during the day, like when I did work days, my minimum was 4 hours. Like I don't want to drive all the way to your house to work there for 2 hours and drive, So for a lot of people, that minimum is 3 or 4 hours during the day. At night, that minimum is usually 8 hours. So because some people will say, can I just hire you from like midnight to 4? Like, yeah, wouldn't that be great? No, you can't. So just the time you really don't want to be asleep. But usually that minimum is 8 hours for overnight care.
Gotcha. Now, and I mean, I know this is hard to say, but, and it depends on everybody's individual circumstance, but if you're like working on your budget, do you think people find it more useful to have someone during the day or have someone at night?
I think it depends if you're looking for that support next to you as you're like, I have to, like the day-to-day, although I was going to say that day-to-day task, but like, let's take something like a bath. Like if I'm talking with a new family and they're like, oh my gosh, we're terrified of the bath because a slippery, teeny tiny baby is terrifying for a lot of people. So it's like, we'll plan ahead and I'll say, okay, when I come on Thursday, let's plan to do the bath, and they'll have everything ready. And then I can stand off to the side and do that. So, if there's a lot of things about the day-to-day care of your baby that you're like, I just want to watch someone do this, you could, you might be better off to have someone during the day. I think the nighttime is where people really just see such a value in being able to, because, they'll very often stay up for a little while after I've gotten there. We'll have a download of information. Maybe there's a bath. Maybe they need to trim the baby's nails, or they want to know how to take the baby's temperature, and we'll work through that. And then they get to go to bed. And then, so there is that balance. I think overnight care is probably the most valuable, but I don't know if I just say that because I'm an overnight doula.
Well, yeah, I mean, rest is very valuable. And
for sure.
Probably what you're giving people is some reprieve and rest for a bit. Yeah. So why don't we get into some practical advice of things to do when you have this brand new baby that you are taking care of? So what about 3 things that people don't know about life with a newborn?
Okay. Yeah. This is the good stuff here.
Yes.
I think one thing, what I start most every workshop, every live, I start everything by saying, helping people to understand crying is your baby's only form of communication. And I think it's really important. And I explain it to families this way. Like if someone's listening to this and understanding us, they likely speak English. Your baby is born fluent in his native language, which is crying. And so it helps to think of it that way because, if my husband walked in the door right now and he was sobbing, I would obviously be like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? It's very different than if my baby was laying here right now crying. He's just trying to communicate something. So inside of my courses, I talk all about, there's little clues that the baby is giving you when he's crying. Is his belly doing this? Is his back doing this? We look at different things to understand, why is this baby crying? And then we talk about what you can do to help him stop crying. But I think the really important thing is what the crying doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that your baby doesn't like you or isn't comfortable with you or doesn't trust you. And
right.
Because, let's remember your body's recovering from this huge accomplishment of growing and delivering this person. And you've had a lot less sleep than you're used to. And now when there's this little person who just keeps crying, it's really easy to take that crying personally.
Sure.
But when you think of it as his native language and you're like, it's as if you're in a different country and you're just like, I'm sorry, we don't speak the same language. Let me try to figure out what you're saying, here, buddy.
Right. I love that. That is excellent advice because it can be really easy to personalize or take it personal that this this child is screaming.
Oh yeah. And that you're thinking
Yeah.
like, he doesn't like me. And it's like,
Yep.
oh, no, no, no. He loves you.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so number 2
Yeah.
is just to remember that you are both doing something that you've never done before. Well, all 3 of you actually, you, your partner, and the baby.
Yes.
And this baby is new to earth. Like this baby was not breathing air 3 days ago or drinking milk,
Hmm.
you know,
Yes.
and you're new to being a parent and your partner is new to being a parent and supporting you being a parent. And so there's just like anything else, there is a learning curve. And I think there's just such a need to show yourself grace and show your partner grace. And, it's just a transitional time.
100%. I mean, I don't think we realize that. And there's also this expectation in a way that like, oh, you'll figure it out.
Mhm.
And it doesn't always, you will get there eventually. It doesn't necessarily always mean it's easy or straightforward. And sometimes you need to ask for help.
Oh, for sure. And for a lot of people, when I'm either like on my monthly chats with my course members or if I'm working in someone's home, they'll say things that are like, they feel like their baby is laying there crying, like, TikTok lady, when are you going to figure out what the heck I need? That's not what's happening here. Yes, your baby might be like, oh, I'm crying because I'm hungry. But guess what? Your baby also might have no idea why he's crying. Like, if we can all think of times where we're just like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted and I'm losing it. It's
Sure.
very possible your baby's feeling that way. So people will say, oh gosh, I just can't figure out why he's crying. It's like, okay, well, go outside. Take him outside. Birds and clouds solve a lot of problems.
Yes.
So why don't you go outside and see if that helps?
Right, right, right. Love it, love it, love it. Let's be real. Pregnancy has you thinking about everything from what you eat to where you sleep. And if better sleep and a better planet are both on your list, let me put you on to Avocado Green Mattress. This Earth Month, I'm thinking about how small choices can have a huge impact. That's why I love Avocado. Their certified organic mattresses are made with non-toxic materials, built to last, and crafted in their own zero waste facility. Because quality is sustainability. The longer a mattress lasts, the less ends up in a landfill. And listen, they're not just about eco-friendly talk, they back it up. As a climate neutral certified brand and 1% for the Planet member, every Avocado mattress supports a healthier you and a healthier earth. So if you're ready for luxurious sleep that aligns with your values, head to avocadomattress.com today and save up to 10% on certified organic mattresses. Dream of better for you and the planet. So what about the third piece of advice or third thing that people don't know?
People don't know is that you can't spoil a newborn. And I think this is important because when I get to someone's home, very often they will say, like, they'll look at me like they're in trouble and be like, I've been holding him for like 45 minutes. It's like, that's okay. You just had this baby was in your body 4 days ago or a week ago. It's okay. You're getting to know each other. Or, I keep rocking him to sleep. Isn't that horrible? Like, he's a newborn. He's used to being in your belly where there was a lot of motion. So the fact that being rocked to sleep is comforting to him isn't strange. Now, if you better think long, do you still want to be rocking your 6-month-old or your 9-month-old to sleep? That's a different story, but you can't spoil a brand new baby. Now, I'm like a planner. I'm type A. A lot of the people in my course are planners who just want to like know what to expect. And for planners, it's like, when can I spoil him? Like, is it 3 weeks? Is it 2 weeks? There's not a switch that goes off where like, warning, your baby can now be spoiled.
Right.
I think again, it comes down to grace and showing yourself, okay, in the beginning, I'm doing these things that I think I should do and that my baby seems to like, and that's okay. It's something, if your baby just ate an hour ago, but you think he's showing you those cues that he's hungry and you feed him, that doesn't mean you have to feed your baby every hour for the next 2 years. It just means that right now
Yes.
seems like he wants to eat. And so you're feeding him. So I think that's important to understand.
This one, I think you could say like over and over again. And I don't know if, from my experience in the Black community, this is often something that's like repeated down from generations. Like, don't spoil that baby. Don't pick that baby up. And it's like, you cannot spoil. You just can't. They need you. They want you. You want them. You like that close time. You're not going to hurt a baby. I remember my first baby was a preemie, and when we came home from we were going home from the hospital, and the neonatologist was like, just hold her all the time. Like, it's important to help them develop and get to know you, get to know your smell, get to
hear
know
your voice and
hear your voice. Yes. Get to know that you are there. You will be there for them from the very beginning. And honestly, I feel like naturally you'll get to a point where, and I don't want to sound like cavalier about it, but you're not going to want to hold your baby every single day for every single second. Like eventually you get to a normal routine and like, I have to do other things. You'll want to do other things.
Well, and I think it's also important because as much as this is the experience of so many people, you might also be 5 days postpartum and you're like, I don't really want to hold my baby right now. And that's okay too.
Yep.
It's like, I say to people, put your baby in his crib, put your baby somewhere safe and hop in the shower and come back out. And that's your little refresh. It's okay if you want to hold your baby and it's okay if you don't sometimes.
Yes. Yes. Love it. Love it. Love it. All of it is normal. And none of it means that you love your baby more or less.
Right.
It's not a reflection of how you feel about your child.
Yes. Very true.
Yeah. So how has being a mother affected your work?
Well, I think my work as a doula, I look at what I went through and how it allows me to speak to situations. I had a vaginal birth the first time, and so I have that experience. And then the second time I had this baby A who just would not flip. I tried everything. I tried acupuncture. I tried chiropractic techniques. He didn't flip. So then I needed a C-section. So then I recovered from a C-section. And my breastfeeding journey was not ideal. It was really, really challenging. But as a result, now I look back at that and I can speak to these situations of thrush and mastitis. And I'm a very faithful person. And I think that this journey that, all these experiences that I had were helping me to prepare to support this mom who's like losing it because she has mastitis or, this pain from C-section. So those experiences have helped me. And of course, having twins, it's, when I interview with a family who's having twins and they're looking for a doula, it's like, yep, I've been there. I remember
like,
that.
Done that. I got that. Yeah.
And sometimes people just stand off to the side. I wonder if I don't think I would be nearly as comfortable with twins if I didn't have them. But the one time I was standing there and I'm at the changing table. I always put the babies right next to each other. These babies have spent a lot of time together. They like being next to each other. And then it's time I'm going to go over to the couch and feed them. And the mom and dad are standing there and they said, is it okay if we don't help you? We just want to see how you're going to get over there. I was like, absolutely.
Yep,
and I just
watch and learn.
Squish them together and carry them like they're one person. And it's like, I wonder at times like that, like if I didn't have twins, would I be like, oh, sorry, buddy. It's like, nope, you guys were together. In our house, we have a saying, you shared a belly, you can share a chair. It's like, if there's not enough chairs somewhere, it's like, you squish those babies together. They've spent a lot of time together. So I think that experience has served me well.
Love it, love it, love it. So just to wrap up, what do you think is one of the most frustrating parts of your work?
I don't know that I honestly have a good answer for that. And not because I'm like the most forgiving patient person in the world. I just think everybody's situation is so different. And it looks, I've worked with families who they just had their fourth baby and people will be like, they hired their doula and they have 4 kids. Yes, because that transition is different for them than if it was their first baby. So There's a lot of grace involved in this and just helping people to, get comfortable with whatever that situation looks like.
Yeah, for sure. That makes you hate that people, I don't know, we have a lot of judgment, and it's like, everybody just stop judging. Let people do
yeah.
do what they want to do with their own lives.
Oh, for sure. And stop getting, you're not looking at perfection. Everybody's life looks different. And I think that's okay. And just adjusting to what your situation is.
Yep, for sure. So on the flip side, what's the most rewarding part of your work?
It sounds weird, but it's when they don't need me anymore. So if I'm working with your family, it's sad. If I'm going to someone's house at 9:45 at night, 3 days after you've given birth or adopted. This is very quickly, we're fast friends. So if I've worked with you for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, it's sad. I mean, I've cried in the living rooms of many families as we're all crying and because this time is over, but it also means that you don't need me because you're comfortable in your role. You feel like you've got this, you're good. And I always, I keep up with all of my family's little text. And I always say, if you can always text me a question, but it has to come with a picture. You can text me any question, but send me a picture. And so that is really what's so rewarding is just, and of course, when people like refer others to me and tell people,
Yeah. That's definitely rewarding. Like you've helped this person through what can be a challenging time and help them to feel confident in their own abilities as a parent.
Oh, for sure. And people always at the last day I'm there, they'll always go, remember when I cried? I'm like, everyone cries because everyone, it's like, as soon as I sit down next to you and say, how's it going? Like generally you're going to start crying. Like that's just how it goes. You're a new mom.
I'm trying not to laugh.
No,
oh my God. It is so true.
Yeah.
And when looking back, you don't realize it, but literally at some point when you have a newborn, you're going to cry.
For sure. And they always think that they're the only one. They're like, oh my gosh. And remember when I cried? I'm like, I remember when you cried. But that's a special thing to be a part of. Like, I love that you felt comfortable enough with me that you wanted to open up about how you were really feeling. Yeah. So it is. It's such a journey to be on with people.
For sure. And then just to end, what is your favorite piece of advice that you would give to expectant families?
You kind of alluded to it before, but there's nothing you should know. There's nothing that you were supposed to know that. It's okay if you want to watch a video of me giving a baby a bath or changing a diaper or dressing a baby. People assume that it should be natural, that they should instinctively know how to do all of these things. But that is just not true. It's okay to have to learn these things and to get comfortable in this role. So I think people are really hard on themselves. And it's like, I should know how to do this, or breastfeeding. Oh my gosh. People are like, why isn't this natural for me? As if like the baby's mouth is magnetically attracted to their nipple and they feel horrible when they've hit a bump in the road. And it's like, no, you do not, let me help you. Let me show you what I've learned after I've lived through the newborn stage hundreds and hundreds of times. Let me show you,
Yeah, exactly. And I think I hate to say like back in the day, but back in the day, there used to be more women around and families were together. So you would have like your mother or your aunt or your grandmother who could help you through these things. I don't think it was ever that people back in the day suddenly knew everything. No. I think they just had naturally more of a community around them. So you just had somebody who was, right next door or in your home who you could ask. And our times are just different. And I think we can find those connections in different ways, like online now and things like that, that we can get back to that, where you have this sort of village of people around you who you can reach out to and help, because it is not all like, it doesn't just suddenly pop into your head.
No, for sure. And I think another thing is that people are having babies later in their life. So maybe their parents are around, but now their parents are older and they're like, my mother couldn't walk down the stairs with my baby or something like that. So, or they don't want their family to support, they want their family support, but not in that way of like, I don't want my mom to come over and like, do my laundry or tell me what to do about this. I think it just looks different, and understanding that there is this option of having this professional, this expert come into your home and help you through this transitional time can be so beneficial.
For sure. So where can people find you?
Well, I do a lot on Instagram and YouTube, both of which I'm at New Parents Academy. So got lots of resources there. And I have a free workshop for people who are expecting. It's called 7 Things New Parents Learn the First Week Home with Their Baby. And we really dive into that first week because I think that there's things that I can tell you now that maybe even if you don't remember them, I ask people to take notes, but it's like, then when you're going through that during the first week, you're like, oh, Valarie talked about this in that workshop.
Yep.
So you can check out that workshop as well. It's at newparentsacademy.com/7things.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And guys, we'll link all of her things up in the show notes. So thank you so much for agreeing to come onto the podcast. Your passion and commitment and just really joy around your work just comes through.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
So wasn't that a great conversation? I especially love those tips for a newborn. It was really, really helpful. Now, after every episode where I have a guest on, I do something called Nicole's Notes, where I share my top 3 or 4 takeaways from the episode. Here are my Nicole's Notes from my conversation with Valarie. Number 1, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. Consider getting a doula, okay? Whether you have a doula during your birth or a doula postpartum or both. Research has shown that during labor, having a doula or continuous labor support from someone like a doula can shorten your labor. It can decrease your need for pain medication, increase your chances for having a vaginal birth. All of these things are wonderful. We don't have a lot of research on postpartum doulas, but just talking about it sounds fantastic. I know that it can be a cost. One of the great ways that you can help cover this is to add it to your registry to kind of crowdsource a doula. Babylist.com, and I'm not affiliated with Babylist at all, but they allow you to put anything you want on your registry so you can have people contribute to helping you get a doula if need be. I'm telling you, you will find this much more helpful than having like 45 onesies, okay? Tip number 2 is you definitely want to take the time and make sure that that particular doula is a fit for you. Doulas are great, but just because someone is a doula doesn't necessarily mean that they're right for you or that they are great at their job, so to speak. There was a post in the private Facebook group for the course about someone who had some difficult interactions with her doula. And don't get me wrong, like I said, doulas are great, but they're people too. And just like anybody else, they may not be the right fit for you, or they may not, have or provide the things that you need. So you definitely want to interview and ask questions of that person before you hire them. Another thing that can also feel a little bit odd. Sometimes people are like, I don't really know this person. It feels weird to have a new person like in my birth space or in my home. And that's again where an interview and talking to people can help, and meeting with people ahead of time can help. Inside the birth preparation course, I have a list of questions that you can ask before you interview a doula. One of those things is that you need to do a body compass check, a body check about how it feels for you. Okay. So in addition to their experience and the things that, what they provide for you, one of the things you need to check in with is just how does it feel having that person around? Because that really goes a long way in terms of making you feel comfortable to have this person in your birth space and in your home. Okay. So definitely interview and ask and make sure that that person is right for you. Don't just assume that because they're a doula, they're going to be great. All right. And number 3 is that everyone needs a village after birth. The medical community does not provide that. So you're going to have to work to create your own village for yourself. A doula is indicative of how our village is just different. I really love the idea that you can work your budget in order to have a doula there based on your budget. It doesn't have to be every night. Maybe it can be one night a week or 2 nights a week for a certain amount of time. I love that idea. And then other things to add to your village. It may be friends, it may be an online community, but make sure you create that village for yourself. Everyone needs it. Or it could be family also, create that village for yourself. You need it in that postpartum period, especially I think in the first month, to help you get adjusted and really focus on getting to know this new human being that you have. You're both learning new things. You're both figuring each other out. And being able to really focus on that is important. So create that village for yourself after your birth. So there you have it. That is it for this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast in Apple Podcast, wherever you're listening to me right now. And I would really love it if you leave a review in Apple Podcast in particular. Those reviews really help the show to grow, help the show to get featured, helps other people find the show. So I appreciate the reviews in Apple Podcast in particular. Also, don't forget that Valarie and I will be doing a live Q&A session only for members of the birth preparation course next week. If you are not a member, you can come join us right now at drnicolerankins.com/enroll. All right, so that's it for this episode. Come on back next week. And until then, I wish you a beautiful pregnancy and birth. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the All About Pregnancy and Birth podcast. Head to my website, drnicolerankins.com, to get even more great information, including free downloadable resources on how to manage pain and labor and warning signs to look out for after birth. You'll also find information on my free online class on how to make a birth plan that works, as well as everything you need to know about my signature online childbirth education class, the Birth Preparation Course. Again, that's drnicolerankins.com, and I will see you next week.